So we can just kind of roll with it. Okay, cool. So the idea, what we were just talking about was you and I had a chance to do breath work along with, I think there was maybe 10 or 12 other people here in our clubhouse. You're obviously, you work with the venture and an agent in your full-time job, and I didn't really know kind of what I was walking into. So I kind of sat down and was like, oh, you know, a great agent is doing breath work. Might as well see what it's all about.
Yeah.
And I was blown away with what the experience was. Really quickly, it was sitting down, breathing, not knowing anything about breath, not even knowing what I was doing or where I was going. And by the end of the hour, I had gone on this wild journey just through my breath of flying, of seeing colors, of seeing experiences, all within a short amount of time. So can you tell me what the heck I just did in that hour, and then what breath work kind of is, what the background of breath work is?
Absolutely. So first of all, there's a lot of different types of breath work. I first got introduced to breath work because I've been doing yoga for 20-something years. And the type of breath work that you do in yoga is called pranayama. It's very different. There's a lot of people have heard of Wim Hof. He's the one that does the breath work, and then you jump in a cold bath afterwards. That's a different type of breath work. The type of breath work that we were using, I specifically went and did a training for breath work to release trauma in the body. And so this type of breath work, it's called a conscious connected open mouth breath. And essentially what it's doing is it's getting our bodies out of the fight or flight, the sympathetic response, which a lot of us are in with the nervous system, and getting us into the parasympathetic, which is your rest and digest nervous system pattern. So, you know, in this day and age, most of us are kind of sitting in that fight or flight. We're not really getting into that rest digest, maybe just when we're sleeping. And so, you know, when you're kind of like really relaxed and you're about to fall asleep and you start twitching or you start yawning, that's like your body starting to go into the parasympathetic nervous system. So what we're doing is we're kind of like forcing your body to go there by breathing in and out through your mouth. Because your natural way to breathe is in through your nose and out through your mouth. But when you breathe in and out through your mouth, you are triggering that nervous system. So that's like the kind of the science behind it. But what happens with people is that we have energy that's trapped in our bodies from different things that have happened to us in our life. It could be trauma that has been like big T trauma, people that have gone to war, that have been in a natural disaster and have PTSD, to just like your everyday stresses, right? And so we know that we're dealing with stress all the time. So the way that we start to release stress can come out in all these like different ways. And so you had this beautiful experience where you kind of like you let go of your body and you were like in your head, you know, and you were like having this like almost like a psychedelic experience, right? And that's something that can really happen to people. It's almost like you're getting into this meditative state that you wouldn't normally be able to get into because it's hard to sit down and meditate for an hour, right? So when you're breathing in and out through your mouth and you're being guided, and I'm playing specific type of music to kind of get you there, a lot of things can happen. That's why people start shaking. Sometimes people start crying. People can make noises. There's just that energy and that trauma that's happening within the body can just start to come out in all different types of ways.
Can you give us a quick example as to the breath work that we did? It was breathe in, breathe out, almost naturally, but it was at a certain cadence. Can you talk a little bit about that particular type of breath that you recommended? Yeah,
so that's the conscious connected breathing pattern, and it's a forced inhale and a relaxed exhale, and it's from the belly. So it's
Did you give the example of it being a circle, like just as much as you're breathing in, you're breathing out, is more not super forced, and it had more of a flow to it, just like you said, when you breathe in and then you exhale, it's not like herky-jerky or anything like that. Like for the novice, right? Like we are very, very elementary. When we were coming in, like I said, this was my first time experiencing breath work, so it's not hard.
No, but that's why, you know, that's why you don't just go and do breath work. That's why you have a facilitator, you know, to have somebody guide you, because you know, a lot of people can start thinking, oh, well, breath work, I just need to breathe up here, right? Up in my chest. Like, well, we don't want to do that, because when you're breathing up in your chest, I think, have you ever had a panic attack before?
I haven't, but I've seen people that have, yeah.
I have had a panic attack. I used to have them in my 20s, and it's like the scariest thing. And when you're having a panic attack, you're breathing like up here, and what that does is that sends you into that fight or flight, right? And so this type of breathing that we're doing, it's really important for it to be like slow and through the belly, and a forced inhale and a relaxed exhale, because you're bringing in oxygen, you're breathing it in, and you're relaxing and letting it go. And so, like you said, it is, I kind of like to see it as like a Ferris wheel, you know? It's like you breathe in and you relax. Breathe in and then relax, like that.
The guided portion of it, okay, because if I remember correctly, it's been 2 months, and again, thank you. You're coming and doing this again tonight, and we have a big group coming, which is super exciting. But the first 15 minutes almost feel, you're like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Right? And you're just like, I don't get it. And maybe sometimes it can even go longer than that, right?
Yeah.
Where you're like, you're overthinking it, right? You can get in your head. So where's the connection between the breath, the head, the body, and the music? And then maybe that's probably 10 questions in one.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a process to it, you know? And so I think the first thing is that, like, when I went through my training, first you have to learn about the trauma process, the trauma cycle, and how that works. And you know, there's different steps of that. Then you have to learn, as a facilitator, how do I explain this in a way to the people that are going to be here that they completely understand, and that they don't get scared. They don't, because there are things that can happen in your body. For instance, you can start to get what's called tetany, which is a tingling sensation within your body.
Right.
And I always make sure that I tell everybody about that, because if you start breathing and you're getting all tingly and you're like, what the hell is happening? And you might freak out, or you might not feel safe. So like my biggest job as the facilitator is to make everybody feel in a container, feel really safe, feel really secure, feel like they're just in this like warm little area that they can, you know, be able to like relax, you know?
And you did a great job of that, by
Thank
the way,
you.
especially for the person on their first time. And a lot of people, I'm imagining, in these events, this is their first time, or one of their first couple of times, which in a safe space will change the experience versus you overthinking it.
Right.
And I know for me, like, I was able to get there quicker just because I was work here, so I know exactly where I'm at. But your voice and the tone also had something to do with it, the environment. Tell us a little bit about how you, now I might screw this up, but it's Reiki?
Reiki.
Okay, Reiki. So not just the breath work, but adding the Reiki to it as well. So what is the thought process with both of those, and how does that work in the experience?
So Reiki is something that like I added on. You know, I got my breathwork facilitation credentials, and then I decided to get attuned to Reiki. Reiki is energy healing. So we're tapping into Reiki energy. And to be a Reiki practitioner, you have to get trained by a Reiki master, and you have to get what's called attuned by a Reiki master, so that you're being able to administer that energy at that same frequency. So for me, adding Reiki on to the process is that, you know, I could see people in breathwork where I can see people like they want to relax and they want to like release, but they're struggling. They're struggling in like either one of their energy centers, or I can see they're fighting back tears, or I can see that they're fighting back like there's energy that wants to move. And so by adding like the Reiki energy, which again, Reiki energy is not my energy. I'm not giving you my energy. I'm giving Reiki energy. But when you add that on, it has a way of just like flushing out your energy centers. So if you're feeling like something like is not going to come up, adding Reiki to it, you'll oftentimes see people like, it's funny when people watch us do breath work, they see it happen. You walk up to somebody and you'll give them Reiki, and then we walk away, and then those people will start having some type of a release. It'll be like a shaking, or sometimes crying, or whatever it is. So
it felt
just
like, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but in my experience, it was like, because your eyes are closed and you're breathing and you're really focused, at least I was, because it was my first time, on the breath part of it.
Yeah.
So you're like, it's your first time, so you're like, am I doing this right? And then you get into it, and you're like, okay, and then you start going through your experience. And the Reiki part, like there was touch in certain areas, and at like the perfect time where you're like, how the hell did someone know? First of all, did someone just touch me? And then you're like, how did they know like what was going on in my head? It was like I was soaring through the air, and then someone would touch it, and you feel like, okay, it's a controlled soar, right? Like something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, because I know you got to get set up and stuff like this, but I'm curious, what are your thought process as you manage all the different energies and emotions of what's going on in a room? Let's just say there's 15 to 25 people. What are you doing, and how are you thinking about the experience of the hour?
Well, so first of all, I have Stacy with me. So Stacy is also with Ritual Realty, and she's a Reiki master. And both of us were yoga teachers too.
Okay.
So some of it is intuition, just like understanding what the process is and knowing, just intuitively going towards people. And then some of that is training. Like I said, I went through a year-long training process, and a lot of that is just looking at people and saying, okay, do they need to go through their process right now, or do they maybe need a little bit of nurturing or a little bit of help? Because there are times that people are just crying, and I don't even go to them because they don't need it. Like I'm not going to help somebody because it's going to make me feel better. I'm only going to go and assist them and like maybe put a hand on their shoulder or put hands on their ankles if I feel like it's going to help them.
Yeah.
So like it's one of these things where like we just have to intuitively like put the ego aside and really see like where can we see them struggling? Because if you're not used to meditating and you're not used to breath work, and if you're not even used to like closing your eyes for 5 minutes and that makes you feel scared, I can tell when that's happening. So when we first start breathing and I can see the resistance, and I can tell they're like, I'm in this room, I'm doing this weird breath, like there's a mask over my face. That's when I just go and I'll like put like my hands on their ankles or something, or just sit next to them, because you can tell that just somebody's presence is there, and there's something about it that just helps people like calm down.
Yeah,
you know,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and that's just like honestly, it's intuition, it's training, and it's just like skill from learning how to just manage these situations.
Because everyone's going through their own experience at different times. The experience can be different.
Absolutely.
On your particulars, because obviously real estate is it's at least a full-time job, if not more sometimes. But doing this, walk me through a little bit like how you got into it, and then why you continue to do it. Because I know for you, it's a labor of passion, I would imagine, because for us, we're a bunch of agents and escrow people and a bunch of people that are just kind of randomly put together in these once every couple of months things. But how did you, or what do you do, or what was your thought process with that from yoga to breath work to real estate to all of those things?
Yeah, so I've been a realtor for 24 years here in San Diego, and it's stressful, you know, and I have had my own like personal healing journey over the past like 15 plus years. I've dealt with my own traumas. My dad passed away when I was 19. I got into real estate at 20. Never really I have my own things that I had to deal with. So yoga was like one of my first like saving graces. Like I mentioned to you, I used to have panic attacks. I had depression. I had all the things in my 20s. And so like learning how to control like my breath, learning how to control my body, through yoga, through movement, and then that turned into my breathwork experiences. I have had plant medicine experiences, and so actually I decided to do my breathwork training after I went through a plant medicine ceremony, and at the end it was the last day, and I did this type of breath work, and it just like blew my mind. I was like, wow, how can people get to this place with just their breath? Like, I need to bring this back to my community. I need to bring it back to my friends, my family, my community. So I started this brand, Ritual Realty, about a year ago, and one of our big things is about bringing my everything that I've learned, all of my tools, all of my passions from my healing journey, and bringing that to the real estate community. So, because I know that we all need to regulate our nervous systems. Like, I am so much different today because of the tools that I have. in my back pocket with, meditation, breathwork, yoga than I was 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. And so we need it. We need it here. And so one of our pillars with Ritual Realty is that we want to give back to our community, specifically our real estate community, and help just elevate us all as a whole, so that maybe we're getting in, less confrontations with each other. Maybe we're, loving on each other more. Maybe we are just getting better sleep. And so that's when we decided to start, doing these events, and linked up with you guys. And this is a beautiful space for us to do it in. And I think that it's gotten some traction. And I think people are like, why are you doing this? Why are you giving your energy and your love? But this is our way of nurturing the community, as a whole.
We're super grateful. Thank you so much. I think for just me personally, I've started rituals and taking small bits of what I've learned, because I had your class and ended up having subsequent classes after that where I learned different styles and then what resonates with me. So whether it's when I'm driving to work or on an appointment, how I'm breathing, whether it's when I'm going to bed, how I'm breathing, whether it's when I'm trying to do a quick meditation or something like that. So the whole world kind of got opened up to me. I guess lastly, this is one of the crazy harebrained ideas I've had, because I've done breath work in a short amount of time, and I've seen the impact in such a short amount of time. I mean, I had an incredible journey in the first time. I love
that you did your first time with us.
Yeah, my first time. So I'm screaming from the mountaintops. I'm like, well, why isn't everyone doing this? So I keep telling everyone, I'm like, this is $1 billion idea, right? Yeah. There needs to be a breath tracker. So a breath tracker, kind of like the Oura Ring or something like that. A glucose monitor, right? But I also am curious, the popularity, or maybe getting breathwork into the mainstream, are you seeing it explode, or is it seems still pretty quiet on that front?
It's starting to. It's funny, and maybe it's just because you're noticing it now. For instance, after I did my training 4 years ago or so, all of a sudden I felt like I saw all these new breathwork apps popping up, and now there's breathwork. There's a breathwork studio in Carlsbad, which is more with the cold plunges and everything. But I'm starting to see it gaining a little bit more popularity. But I do think that we're at the beginning of something a lot bigger, because again, I also work with veterans. I've worked with a lot of veterans with PTSD and taught breathwork to them at retreats. And it's just amazing. I've seen just such a wide array of results from people. Anything from people literally falling asleep as soon as they lay down and start breathing, to people screaming, to crying, to shaking, to dancing, to laughter, to psychedelic experiences. And I just think that there's a place for people need to express themselves and get outside of their heads and it's almost let the body start taking control a little bit, and that's what happens with the breath work. Is you kind of go offline a little bit, and
which is really, really important right now, right? We're so glued to our phones, we're so glued to the next meeting, we're so glued to what's next. I am the worst at all of this, and so this was a really good experience for me. I want to thank you. I know we're got to get going here, but it was a quick thing. We could probably go on for another hour and a half.
It's also addicting once you go on this. You're starting this your whole healing journey, or it sounds like you've been on it for a little while. But you're gonna get more deep into all these different modalities and all these, like I say, these tools that you can use. Because once you start saying oh, I can feel better. I can reach this space, you can start getting there quicker,
And once you just see, it's like anything, right? When you work out, sometimes the first couple ones are just not as impactful as you think they're gonna. Once you just go a little bit better, you're like, holy shit, that's nuts. To see that I did this and then I got this. I'm okay, so I'm the biggest fan ever. Yay. I keep telling everyone, I'm screaming from the mountaintops, you gotta try breath work at any level or any degree. I think the best for especially for someone in the beginning is to try a class where you're guided and it's in that safe space. That was really impactful for me. So thank you for taking a couple of minutes today. I really appreciate it.
And
everybody get out there and breathe.
Letting us be here and doing all this.
Cool, thank you.
Yay, thanks.
How did we do on time?